It has been, Hassan, and thank you for doing this, a busy couple of days, weeks, months, years for you in your role as Secretary General of the Supreme Committee for Delivery and Legacy. I'm going to get to the FIFA World Cup in a moment, your preparations for what is a massive, massive event. But I just want to start with a couple of more recent events, because these are really important to Qatar and to the run-up to the World Cup. First, the Arabian Gulf Cup, a couple of weeks ago. How significant was it that Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Bahrain sent teams, albeit at the last moment?
I think the tournament itself holds a very special place in our hearts. I mean, to those of you who might not be aware of it, the Gulf Cup is a tournament between the countries within the GCC, the Gulf Cooperation Council, and included in it as well over the years has been Iraq and Yemen as well. It's a tournament that's very, very dear to our hearts as a population, as people of the Gulf. And up until maybe about a week or maybe 10 days before the tournament, it was set to be a tournament of 5 nations participating in it, and then it became a full house. And there's no doubts, as I said, because it holds a very close place to our heart, it was a great moment. But I think, again, it showcases, if you allow me, it showcases the commitment of the state of Qatar when it comes to separating sports and politics. The concept of creating platforms that despite differences, bring people together. And that's exactly what the GCC showcased.
Nelson Mandela once said that sport had the power to change the world. We can see football diplomacy in action here. We also know that behind the scenes, when you won the rights to host the World Cup in 2022, it didn't go down really well with your neighbours. They felt that you weren't sharing the limelight, and I don't mean you personally, but Qatar as a whole. Do you ultimately believe that sport actually could help with this regional reconciliation?
I believe sports has a profound transformational power to bring people together, absolutely. And if somebody is as distinguished and as experienced as Nelson Mandela can appreciate that power, then rest assured I'm in the same camp, plain and simple. The reality is, again, as I said, from day one when we won the right to host the World Cup, we saw this as a transformational opportunity, not only for Qatar. It's a transformational opportunity for the region to utilize and to benefit out of this great event, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. But it's also an opportunity to build bridges between people of different backgrounds, different parts of the world. It goes without saying, I think, stereotypes are very quick to build up and people become intransigent with their opinions. But you have this powerful tool, which is sports, and in particular football in the World Cup, that can truly break down these opinions. I'm not talking about from an ideological point of view. I'm talking about from the point of view of an average fan. The average fans that have come from Mexico, for example, because we're hosting the Club World Cup today, as we speak. The average fans that have come from Mexico today, and you can see them around the souk, their videos are all over the place, wearing the national dress, appreciating and experiencing the country for the first time, and building relations with the average Qatari or Egyptian or Indian who lives in Qatar. They create a bond amongst themselves. They support different teams, but there's a unity when it comes to the love and passion for this game. And it truly creates a bond that we all need to utilize and build upon.
Let's do 2022 then. You're talking about a competition which is now only 3 years out and counting. In fact, less than 3 years out. I mean, I can remember the day you won that bid. It feels like yesterday to me. I'm sure it doesn't feel like yesterday to you.
No, surprisingly enough, it feels like yesterday, and yet it feels like centuries away. So it's...
All right. Well, are you confident that you can deliver the stadiums and the infrastructure that you need for this competition, even if this dispute, blockade, call it what you will, is still in place? Because I know that has had an impact on your efforts.
Blockade.
Dispute.
But no, absolutely. We're in progress. We're making progress right now. Our stadiums are coming online. We were supposed to inaugurate one of our stadiums, Qatar Foundation Stadium, at the final for the Club World Cup. Because we didn't get the certification at the right time and tried and applied the test events that we wanted, we took the decision to decide to delay the inauguration of the stadium, although it's construction-wise, it is absolutely complete. And that is within the pipeline that we have. Qatar Foundation was meant to be done by the end of this year, and it is complete by the end of this year. Next year, 3 stadiums are coming into the pipeline, and by 2021, all stadiums will be ready. The metro system, which covers Doha and Wakra and parts of the northern part of also of the country, is complete. It's now becoming operational as we speak. We tested it very, very successfully in the Gulf Cup, where about 17,000 people used one of the lines to come to a football match. So we not only is it complete, but we're actually testing its veracity and its efficiency, and it's proving to be a success. So the expressways that we're talking about are all coming into play as well. In terms of preparation, construction-wise, infrastructure-wise, everything is coming according to plan. And now we're moving on to the operational side. So the Gulf Cup that you've mentioned, the Club World Cup, which we're hosting as we speak, we're hosting the next edition next year as well. We will have another tournament in 2021. All are in place to test our plans, our strategies that we've put in place, and to help us improve and be ready for 2022. But also I'd like to add just one last element. For example, the Club World Cup as well as the Gulf Cup are an opportunity for us also to hear the fans, to listen to the fans, to the supporters that have followed their teams and flown over to Qatar, to see, the plans that we've put in place. Do they actually meet the expectations? Are they satisfactory for the fans themselves or not? Because we view these fans as our partners in preparing to host a very successful, and I'd like to think a very transformational tournament in 2022, both in terms of event, but also beyond.
Yeah, and it's transformational off the pitch as well. And I want to talk about the changes that the World Cup has effected, or at least the promises for changes that the World Cup has effected. This country has been constantly under the spotlight ever since you won the right to host this competition. The cabinet has now announced changes to worker welfare, and these are in response, on the whole, to the criticisms that have been weighed on this country. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions here, which I just want very specific answers to. When will the kafala system end? And beyond that, when will we see the introduction of minimum wage and mechanisms in place to ensure that employers and sponsors do not abuse their workers?
The specific answers to these, because as you know, the announcement was made by the Minister of Labor that the kafala system is ending. The minimum wage, now just to address the minimum wage announcement that was made, there is a minimum wage in place right now. Albeit we can argue whether it's sufficient or not, but there is a minimum wage in place. It's, I believe, 750 riyals a month. There is now a commitment towards reviewing that minimum wage and increasing it, but in addition for it to be applied, and it is being applied in a non-discriminatory way. And I just want to clarify, because a lot of people might not be aware of this, most minimum wages that are currently in place within the region, not just within Qatar, are as a result of sending nations negotiating on behalf of their citizens. So the wages vary between nationalities. What the state of Qatar has done is impose a non-discriminatory minimum wage in relation to all workers in the state of Qatar. Now this, of course, as I said, it's currently in place. There is now a review to increasing it. When that will be, I can't answer that specifically, as well as when the kafala will end. What I can say is, just to address just one slight point, the commitment towards worker welfare reforms has been in existence before we won the right to host the World Cup. The National Vision 2030, when it was launched around 2008, under one of its pillars did have, as one of the aims, is the improvement of the dignity of anybody that is working in the state of Qatar. Now, it's fair to say as well that while laws were put in place, the implementation of these laws were not up to expected standards, and not even to us. The World Cup, as we said, was always going to be a catalyst for positive change, as a transformational tool. And it served on many different fronts. At the forefront of it was the worker welfare reforms. So since we won the right to host the World Cup, within the Supreme Committee, we started our initiatives before the focus was brought on upon us by the Guardian story. And since then, initiatives have been taken, laws have been changed, but more important than all of this, on the ground, change is happening as we speak. And I can speak in a bit as well about the work that the Supreme Committee has done, that has also in partnership with the Ministry of Labor now being implemented beyond the Supreme Committee's environment towards the wider remit of the country.
No, this is all really important stuff. It's of course one thing to announce these initiatives, another to enforce these laws. It is enough, very briefly, being done on the enforcement side.
You can never claim that anything is enough. Look, when it comes to worker welfare reforms, I don't think any nation can look at itself today and say that they've done enough, maybe with the exception of certain nations within Scandinavia. I will say that. I do not think any nation today can come out and make the claim that they have been able to, that they can do that they've done enough, that everybody is covered under a safety net, that everybody is taken care of. But all we can do is strive continuously and constantly to improve. And that is what we're doing over the last 10 years. And I'll give you an example of, in relation to the work that we're doing within the Supreme Committee. We launched our standards that governs the construction work as well as the services being provided to us within the Supreme Committee early on in about 2012, 2013, before even any major construction work started. We engaged with the companies here to make sure that they are partners in delivering these reforms and delivering and enforcing these standards. We engaged with NGOs and trade unions as well to come and help us and to observe what we're doing and to help us in achieving sustainable change. Not change that addresses criticism for the purpose of just satisfying the critics, but change that goes to the individual that will benefit out of this change in a way that will enhance his life, that will improve, that will offer him dignity, that will offer him safety and security within his lifestyle and within his life. And that is what we tried to do, and that is what we attempted to do. And we evolved. I just want to add that one last point. We evolved over the last 10 years. We've improved. We've learned, we've learned that, and we learn every day.
Sure.
That there are things that still need more improvement, they need more development, and that's what the state is doing here as well. We're implementing change, and we're observing, and we're working towards improving it. And that's why we look towards the International Labor Organization, ITUC, BWI as partners in helping us in improving.
The 2018-2019 annual Workers' Welfare Progress Report, which you will be well aware of, suggested that there are a total of 11 deaths of workers working on Supreme Committee projects. Of these, 10 were described as non-work related, and 1 was work related. There have been reports, Your Excellency, of family members of workers who have died on projects not being compensated. What more are you doing for the families behind the scenes, as it were?
Let me start off by saying every death is a tragedy. Plain and simple. Whether you define it as non-work related or work related or whatever else it may be, it is an absolute tragedy, especially to the family members. In relation to non-work related deaths, when we're informed of a death, what we do is we send a team out to investigate, to speak to workers, the workers' colleagues or the deceased colleagues, and try to understand the circumstances and so on. And of course, we communicate with the family as well. And we ensure and work very hard towards ensuring that families get compensated. And companies, at the most, do so willingly. And some companies, if they're reluctant, we actually enforce them towards paying compensation. Now, in relation to some of these incidents that you've mentioned, where some families might not have received compensation, it is because, as I said, no system, unfortunately, is perfect. Mm-hmm. And the reality is, the unfortunate reality is, some companies and some incidents do fall through the cracks. But that's where we, as soon as we find out about it, we jump in straight away and try to ensure that families are compensated. We do try to investigate as soon as possible any incident that occurs, whether it's work-related or non-work-related.
Okay.
And just to clarify just one last point, every one of these deaths is a serious matter and a tragedy to us, and we take this matter very seriously. And as I said, even though sometimes, unfortunately, incidents do fall through the cracks, it's still unacceptable, whether to us or anybody else. And we are taking this matter very, very seriously, and not just within myself, but within the entire Supreme Committee.
Good. I know that labour rights and worker conditions were a real concern for Liverpool FC. They are, as I understand it, arriving as we speak, pretty much, for this Club World Cup competition. One of their biggest fan groups, I think it's called Spirit of Shankly, was actually not too keen on its fans travelling here. I know that you spent a lot of time trying to address their concerns and ensure that their fans felt comfortable about coming out here. I'd just like you to share with the audience what it is that you did in order to get them to change from pretty much not interested in, and there was some talk of a boycott of this competition, to they're pretty neutral on it and it was up to the fans to come. How did you change their minds?
Well, again, as I said, this is an opportunity, and we look at it as a platform to bring people together, to raising concerns, and breaking down stereotypes. So what we did was we engaged with Liverpool FC themselves, and we engaged with Spirit of Shankly. We went over, members of my team went over, they opened themselves up effectively to any sort of questions, any sort of queries that were, to dispelling any misconceptions and misinformation that the Spirit of Shankly had, and at the same time also to confirm maybe some of the information that they do have, and showing how we are tackling these issues. So we, the best way and the only way of doing it is to look at this as an event, truly as a platform to bring people together, many more ways than one. And in doing so, being very open and transparent in terms of the genuine progress that's being made over here. And as I said, it's being made out of a desire and a commitment to values that we share as a nation, and ultimately we share as human beings. And I think without anything left, with everything on the table, any question, no holds barred, I think the Spirit of Shankly recognized the fact that we were genuine, and the fact that it is worth giving this nation, to coming in and experiencing and following Liverpool FC. And I think, it was well received.
Mm. And they have actually got hundreds, if not thousands, of traveling fans for this competition.
The number that I've heard is 5,000. And I think, when the Liverpool fans come over, when the Monterrey fans, they're already here, the Flamengo fans come in, I think it'll be a celebration of multilateralism and multiculturalism in a nation that truly believes in that and truly embraces inclusivity.
So there were critics who said, oh, Qatar is a conservative country, it's not going to be up for people from different backgrounds and orientations. I know that you've said in the past that everybody is welcome. And I guess, if you're thinking about those traveling Liverpool fans, are you ready to host them? For example, can they have a pint and watch their team? How much is that pint going to cost? You know the answers to these questions.
Look, as I said, alcohol is not part of our culture, but hospitality is part of our culture. So what we do, there will be places, and there are places that serve alcohol that people can go and enjoy a pint. The actual price of it, I'm not going to lie to you, I don't know. I'm not aware of it, so if anybody...
£5 as I understand it, but anyway.
Well, if anybody knows and they're not happy with it, get back to us, we'll see what we can do. But it's not, I can't make any promises. As a matter of fact, you should have asked that question when Akbar al-Bakr was here. Pass that question on to him. But alcohol will be available. But again, it's the purpose is to make people welcome, to make people, come here in a mood of celebration. Come here understanding and recognizing that we do share different backgrounds. We do share different beliefs. We do share different opinions. But sharing a difference and having different opinions does not mean that we cannot come together, celebrate in a truly unified way, our common humanity. And look, we're in the Doha Forum today. I think if there's ever an opportunity or ever an example of, multilateralism, multiculturalism, differences in opinion, then I think the Doha Forum this year has actually showcased it.
It certainly provided a platform for all the right questions, and you have taken on many of those questions and criticisms that have been leveled, and you've provided us some very sort of robust answers. My colleague Amanda Davis spoke to Nasser Al-Khatta, who is the CEO of 2022 recently. He told Amanda that he thought coverage of Qatar he felt that the coverage of Qatar has been unfair, the level of criticism leveled at the country unfair. Do you agree with that assessment?
The level of criticism that was thrown at us, I think, since 2010, in certain areas was biased, in other areas was misinformed, and in some areas was plain and simply false. But there was some criticism that was constructive, that was genuine. I think, but again, we were in a very unique situation, right? Over 10 years, we faced, again, no nation has ever hosted a tournament or been nominated to host a tournament with such a prolonged period of time. So every time there's there's a quiet news story, let's go and attack Qatar. And host nations are usually subject to extreme criticism. We've seen it in Russia, we've seen it in Brazil, we've seen it in South Africa. But I think there was there's a specific viciousness in certain areas when it came to us in certain elements. Now, if for those of you who might not be aware, if you look back in the history, and certain people have come out and actually said it, there was a targeted campaign against us that spread misinformation, spread falsehoods. That did happen. There were other campaigns that provided constructive and merited criticism, and these are the ones that we embraced and engaged with. But I think in the overall, regardless whether we were treated fairly or not, I think us as a nation, and if the blockade told us anything, that we're a resilient nation. And the fact is, we believe that the benefits of this tournament far outweigh any let's say, unrequited criticism or anything else, or any pains that we might have gone through or go through, because I think the benefits truly will come towards the people of the region, towards the people of Qatar. And what we're hoping to do also, and hoping that this tournament can achieve, is a platform that truly serves as one of the beacons in a very divisive world where it can bring people together.
And we've run out of time. Well, we haven't had enough time to talk about legacy, which I know is incredibly important to you. And you and I have talked about it a lot in the past, and there are some great legacy opportunities and strategy here. I want to take just a final moment.
Sure.
And have you imagined the moment when that opening game of 2022 FIFA World Cup is drawing to a finish? Your job of delivery will then effectively be over. You will probably be able to relax for the first time in years. What do you hope will be running through your mind at that point?
I hope that my daughters will still recognize me. Honestly.
And with that, Your Excellency, we thank you very much indeed for joining us. Fantastic. Thank you.